Well, our featured guest just popped up into the waiting room, and as promised, a former NFL linebacker who was drafted by the Cleveland Browns in the 6th round of the 2012 draft joins us. It's Emmanuel Acho. He's a Texas Longhorn. You might remember him from his time in college football from 2008 to 2011. He's also transformed himself into an Emmy Award-winning broadcaster. He's an analyst and host for The Facility on Fox Sports. And Sarah, I know you know this. He even hosted The Bachelor.
You know, I watched The Bachelor. Oh, yeah. I always have the ladies' night for The Bachelor.
Yes. And of course, last but not least, he's also an NFL MVP voter, which is exactly why you wanted to bring him on today. Here he is, Emmanuel Acho, ladies and gentlemen.
Coming off your Bachelor talk, actually. Yeah, I didn't realize. Apologies for tardiness. Literally just got home from set. But good to see y'all. Good to see y'all.
Yeah, no, I knew you were running over from set because you said you want me to have a nice setup or you want me to come from the iPhone. I was like, we'll give you to 12:45 then if we can get, Emmanuel looking his best. And how's the voice? I know that you lost it there for a minute. You sent me that voice memo and I was like, dang, he does not sound good.
I'm at about 70%, but it's good. I mean, the season for us, like I assume for y'all, like I know for the athletes, it's a grind. No days off, 6 days a week, 7 days a week. Cap it with the Super Bowl. It was on our network, so it was a grind. But all is good. Good to be here. Good to talk a little MVP, a little bit of everything.
It's so good because you and I have interacted so much on Twitter. Obviously, more often disagreeing than agreeing. But this is why I respect you. Is like I try to keep it just about the conversation, nothing personal. And I'm still blocked by other people when I'm not trolling. I'm just having that conversation. The fact that you're here today, I respect because I know Ravens have been all over you much more than even Bills fans have been all over me. I'm telling you, they're both mad at opposite people here. So I figured we got to get together and, talk this through face to face, representing both sides. So I appreciate you coming on because I know it's not the friendliest environment, especially I don't know if you're watching chat. So
of course
they've already said, let's try to behave ourselves here. So we're hoping
and we've seen your DMs too. We saw the screenshots you put up there. My goodness.
It's interesting. So Bobby, the head of the AP did not notify us that our votes would be public. Now, I stand behind everything I say and everything I do, and I vote accordingly. But I know there were some other voters that were like, yo, I didn't know my votes were going to be public. I always assumed there's a world in which it could. But I literally texted the head of the AP and I said, yo, bro, you might want to give us a heads up next time. Again, I said, I can handle it. It's all good. But other people probably can't handle strangers telling them, I hope you kill yourself. I hope you die. You're a coon. You're Dan's. Like, other people might not be accustomed to handling that. Obviously, Sarah, we're talking about a game here.
Yeah.
Now, a game has major implications. I do not know about the escalators in Lamar's contract, but I think Josh Allen got like a $1.5 million bonus for winning MVP. So though it is just a game, I use a lot of sincerity in my voice when I say like, it's a game, but there are major implications for voters and the way in which we vote. And I do take that with the utmost level of seriousness.
Yeah, we do. We know you do. So let's start with this, Emmanuel. And I think the biggest shock for not just Ravens fans, but I think it was the NFL world, was the fact that 30 voters voted for Lamar Jackson for the All-Pro. And so after that came out, it was like, oh, this probably means, this is a shoo-in for Lamar to win MVP. Yeah. You were one of, I think, 7 voters who kind of flipped that once the MVP vote came around. And then you voted for Josh Allen for MVP. Can you explain to the viewers why you flipped that? Because it's not just Baltimore. It was NFL wide that was shocking.
Yeah, it was shocking because it was atypical, because there is what I would suggest a new authority in town. Let me try to educate this for those that are willing to listen. I became a voter 2 years ago. I voted for Lamar Jackson for MVP last year. Number 1, I voted Josh Allen, number 2 last year. The head of the AP, I believe, took over 3 years ago. And since then, Sarah, it has now been directed and it has been made abundantly clear. All pro is for the person who had the best overall season. MVP is for the individual who had the most valuable season. Now, In the previous years of voting, I do not think that has been clarified. I also cannot speak to anybody who has voted outside of myself the last 2 years. So I believe that we have been trained into thinking whoever is all pro will be MVP, because that's the way it has historically gone based upon the governing bodies historically over the AP ballots, etc. But the new governing body has made it abundantly clear that the two awards, they are separate and completely different entities. Let me offer another example. Last year, Joe Flacco won Comeback Player of the Year. It was told to us this year for clarity, Comeback Player of the Year award should not be given to somebody who came back from being sorry. It should be given to somebody who came back from being injured. Hence why Joe Burrow won it this year. Joe Flacco didn't come back from nothing last year. He just came back from the couch. He never should have won it. So it was clarified to us. So it is very shocking both to analysts, to fans, to opinionists alike, because the way in which the votes occurred this year has been changed because it's a new governing body, if you will. I voted Lamar for first team All-Pro. I believe I voted Joe Burrow for second team All-Pro because their seasons were better. Statistically, they were better than Josh Allen's. But that word better versus value to me is not semantics. That word has meaning. Again, for those that don't know, I'm a word snob. I've written 4 books in 4 years. I like words. And so better and value, they just mean different things to me. Last thing I'll say is this. If you think Lamar Jackson is more valuable, you have every right to do so. Just make sure you think he is more valuable, not that you think he is better. Not you, Sarah, the proverbial you.
Yeah, no, well, that's interesting because, I mean, there's a lot of different directions we could go. First of all, it seemed to me that many voters, they can say it's most valuable, but to most voters, it still meant best.
Yeah.
It still meant best. I mean, Tom Brady still picked him. You heard when ESPN was arguing about it with Dominique Foxworth and Dan Orlovsky, because he took the same view as you. And they think it's semantics. And so I would say the AP, or, I mean, you're putting it on the AP with definitions. So I would put it on them if that's what they did. I also put it on those that kind of flip. To me, this is a situation where we're overthinking the words. Like, it's like, if you look back on history, that's clearly what people have been voting on. And it's clearly has an impact on the Hall of Fame and the legacies that people get. And so whether it's you as a voter or Dan Orlovsky as a voter or the others that changed it or the AP saying it, like, we've just gotten too cute. To me, it's the equivalent of the Philadelphia Eagles get to the 1, and instead of doing the tush push, they try to throw a pass. Like, what are we doing here? Take the tush push. It's right there. We all know that's the best way to score. You're like overthinking the situation. And that's what I think has happened here.
Let me ask you a question, though,
Mm-hmm.
because I would suggest, are we overthinking it or are we thinking about it accurately? What I mean is, like, just because people have done it wrong before, does that mean that you, Sarah, should do it wrong? Or say it was right before, but now it's been clarified that we're changing it. Should we not adjust with the times? Laws change every single day. We used to not wear seatbelts. Now you do wear seatbelts. Laws in the NFL change. Used to not be able to hit a receiver defensively, or you used to be able to hit them. Now you can't. So all governing bodies and governances are always changing. Again, I can't speak to anybody who voted prior to 2022. But Sarah, I could not continue in ignorance just because people before me are ignorant. That's just not the way I approach life itself. So I'm not saying that you're right. I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm saying I understand where you're coming from. And, well, this is how it's always been. But if everybody does that, am I supposed to do it even if I know it's wrong just because it's what everybody else does? That's what I would ask you.
Yes. And I think that you should have. No, and here's why. I'm saying like you should have pushed back. And here's why. You should change your show, because you guys, just like us, talked every single week about who's MVP, because you know that historically MVP meant it was the best player and it has an impact on legacy. So every single week you guys went in and you guys debated who was going to be MVP. You did not debate who was going to be first team All-Pro, and neither did we. Mm-hmm. Because we know the significance of what that is. So if the AP is in here and they're trying to change the definition, okay, then everything that you change needs to follow along with it. It needs to be that now we don't put on a pedestal the MVP, we put on the pedestal the All-Pro. And now we say, oh, this quarterback in this era had 4 All-Pros, and in this quarterback in this era had 4 MVPs, but they're equivalent. Because that is absolutely, it meant best player for decades. And for some governing body to come in and change precedent without telling the whole entire NFL world, rather than some obscure emails or phone calls that are happening backdoor, that doesn't seem to have gotten to all the MVP voters. Yes, I think you should have pushed back, Acho.
Well, here's where I did push back. I pushed back for clarity. I do a lot of homework. I always did a lot of homework. I was never the most talented athlete. I just prided myself in working the hardest and in trying to uplift intelligence. I asked him a couple things. I said, hey, can you split votes? And I asked the head of the AP, can you split votes? Like, can I vote Lamar and Josh as co-ones? And he said, no, you can't vote as co-ones. But if they tie, they can share the award. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, can't do that. Then I also asked, I said, hey, send me the definition of what I'm voting for. So, Sarah, I did push back. My pushback just didn't lend itself in Lamar's favor this year, whereas last year it did. It also didn't lend itself in Lamar's favor for MVP, whereas it did for All-Pro. Obviously, we esteem MVP, to your point, more than we esteem All-Pro. I push back on Comeback Player of the Year. So where I disagree with you or even challenge you is I did push back. I just didn't get the answer that you wanted me to get. But like, I did a lot of homework as it pertains to, hey, clarify this for me. Hey, clarify this for me. Hey, why are we doing this? I asked every question I needed to ask, and then I did my own homework. I did my own research. And that's why I feel very confident in my decision, is because like I posted, like I just went back and watched everything I believe of significance. Go ahead, Sarah.
Okay. So yeah, there's just the last question I have here. You're saying this new regime came in a couple years ago, and correct me if I'm wrong. I know this because our audience keeps sending me information. It's hard. It's like not just me who's debating you. I promise you, like our audience is trying to send me stuff. But Brock Purdy versus Lamar last year before the Christmas game.
Yeah.
Brock Purdy had Deebo Samuel. He had Christian McCaffrey, Ayuk, all that. I mean, incredible supporting cast.
Yeah.
And prior to that game, you said, if he wins this game, I'm going to give it. I mean, Purdy has the lead. That was what your position was at the time. Lamar ended up winning, and he outplayed everybody on that field. So I know why you voted the way you did there. But my question is why didn't this new definition that came in prior to 2023, why didn't that hurt Brock Purdy in your eyes when he had a superb supporting cast?
Last year, I would suggest it did hurt Brock Purdy. I didn't vote Brock Purdy first or second for MVP. I think I may have voted Brock Purdy for like 5th or 4th. I'll go back and check.
Well, going into December 25th, you were ready to, despite the supporting cast.
Because a couple things. Number one, I love the Niners. I watch the Niners because I got friends. D'Amico Ryans, my former teammate, was an old DC, so I just used to be a super fan of the Niners because I'm a fan of my friends. I don't really care for teams. I care for my friends, respectfully. It's a couple things. Number one, the way the Niners offense was rolling and the way they looked and Brock Purdy's numbers along with the record. So had a great cast, all of the things, but he looked great. Like conversely, Jalen Hurts this year, 18 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Great cast, but his numbers were still kind of like, yeah, they don't look all that great. Brock Purdy was different. Brock Purdy's numbers were like that. Though his team was like that, his numbers were like that. When Lamar stepped on that field, bro, Lamar embarrassed Fred Warner. When Lamar embarrassed Fred, that's when I said, you know what? I said, hey, he MVP. And I love one player in the National Football League. It's Fred Warner. That's the only one I actually.
Hey, he's my guy. He went to BYU. He's my guy. Yeah.
The only one I love. When Lamar embarrassed Fred, that's when I said, you know what? He's different. He's different. It wasn't even about Brock. Brock threw 2 bad picks. I think he threw 5. 3 of them were tipped. The one he threw to Kyle Hamilton, I think it was cover 4 in the end zone. That was like, hey, bad play, Brock. He threw another bad pick. But it was about how good and how valuable Lamar looked in that game. Cut to this year. Lamar did beat Josh head to head. I think it was week 4. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yep.
But when I went back and I watched that game first, remember Derrick Henry, 87 yards to the crib. Now, I'm not punishing him. I'm just using context. Again, I'm a defender. I look at the game defensively. So after Derrick Henry goes 87 yards to the crib, instantly the Buffalo Bills, they completely adjust. Now they go from 2 high, screw this. We shift them down to 1 high. Lamar made 3 special plays in that game. Josh made 2 special plays in that game. I went back, I rewatched the game, plays that I deem is special through the lens of a defender. So though the Ravens beat the brakes off of the Bills, Lamar didn't like run 10,000 laps around Josh. Lamar outplayed Josh, but he didn't like murder Josh, whereas Lamar ran 10,000 laps around Purdy. I mean, every lap that you could run around Purdy, respectfully, unfortunately for Brock. I like Brock Purdy. Lamar did that. I also contextualized that it was a lot of things happened after the week 4 or 5 game between the Ravens and the Bills. So it was truly close for me. That word value, though, is where it differed.
So so in your mind, since you got this new thing that it means that it does not mean best, what, in like a simple phrase, what did value mean to you?
Value to me means how dependent is the team on you exclusively for success?
Yeah. So
Mind
this
you,
isn't even something to celebrate anymore then. I can't celebrate that. It's like who's the best player on the worst team with the best record, like nearly a good record. You know what I mean? It's not even like who cares who wins that award then? If that's all it means.
I mean,
for real though, like why should we esteem that if that's the definition?
I think I don't think we'll run into this problem a lot. I don't think we will, because remember, Lamar had a uniquely superb year. Not uniquely, because he was superb in 2019 as well. Lamar had a superb year. Josh did some things that you just don't see happen often. He did some things you don't see it. You truly don't see it. So I also think we are irate over something that won't occur very often. And again,
but that doesn't mean much to Baltimore fans, because 3 MVPs is probably a Hall of Fame lock.
Oh, 2's a Hall of Fame lock. Everybody with 2's a lock too. I mean, Lamar's a Hall of Famer already. He's a lock. Now, that does not mean he should not have won. Like, I got upset when my co-host Chase Daniel, he's not a voter Ravens fan, so relax. When my co-host Chase Daniel was like, yeah, but Lamar already has 2, so I'm sure there's voter fatigue. I said, to hell with that.
Yeah.
I said, to hell with that. Just because he got 2 does not mean he should not win this one. To hell with that. I only looked at this year. I exclusively looked at this year. Josh was just more valuable.
Yeah, again, like if that's the definition, then it's just not to be celebrated. And I would like you to give that, if you would, then my suggestion would be to push back with that. Like, what are we celebrating here then? What are we celebrating if it's not the best player? This is what we do. We want to see who wins. We want to see who has the best outcome. Like, we want to see an obvious winner. We celebrate success. We celebrate not like who has the worst team. And then all season long, and Emmanuel, what was like sick to me is that the 2 fan bases started debating and trashing their quarterback's own teammates, right? And so it's like Cook got cooked by his own fan base to, you know what I mean? To like, and I wasn't going to do that to Derrick Henry. Right. And then, so like, and then it's like, then you start to like pick and choose based off of hypotheticals with this new nebulous definition. Right. So then you're like, okay, well, let's see. Derrick Henry's better than Cook, even though they both had 16 touchdowns, but Derrick Henry had double the yards, and obviously he's a future Hall of Famer. So I'm not going to sit here and trash him. And then you like look over to the defense, and every single time, and I know not everybody uses stats, but I think the tape bore this out. Every single time Lamar Jackson played below an MVP level, and this is according to the numbers that Mike Sando, a fellow MVP voter, put together. Every time Lamar Jackson did not play at an MVP level, the Ravens were 0-5. When he played at an MVP level and above, the Ravens were undefeated. The defense did not have his back for 10 weeks of the season. Then they started getting better, but they still weren't like balling out. Justin Tucker single-handedly missed 7 points of field goals in that Eagles game, and the Ravens lost by 5. And so it was like, then I remember you in week 1 had criticized the Ravens. I think it was like week 1 or 2, saying that they didn't have an offensive identity, and they didn't. No, they were working through. You criticized, or you didn't criticize, but you projected about how losing a DC was going to hurt. Losing your top pass rusher was going to hurt. Losing your starting Pro Bowl linebacker was going to hurt. Your interceptions leader was going to hurt. But nobody wanted to talk about that all year long. It was only that Josh Allen lost his receiver, which is a big loss. But it's like, then you just start picking and choosing which context you want to bring for this new weird definition.
But here's where I don't push back, because most people who know me, like, I like to listen, learn other people's ideology. I really get that upset. If I do, I'm probably just like trying to make TV. Here's where, like, I would submit, like, for anybody watching, there's 50 voters, and there's 50 voters with different levels of experience, which I think is a beautiful thing. You could argue that it's not. Some people suggest, man, every voter should only be a Hall of Famer. Y'all do realize most Hall of Famers don't work really hard anymore because they're already Hall of Famers. Like, the hardest working people are usually like the backups, because like they've always had to work hard. Or most voters should only be coaches. There's some sorry coaches out there. Trust me, I know. Or like, so here's what I say that to say this. I voted based upon my experience as a defender in the NFL, a defender collegiately, a defender that was in the same room as current head coaches, that was on a team led by Tom Coughlin when I was on practice squad, that was on a team led by the Chip Kellys, that was on a team led by, so I vote from a defensive mind. Truth be told, Sarah, I don't really look at a ton of stats, because I look at the tape, because I that's what I always did. I've never been in a defensive meeting room and my coach said, hey, the EPA of this player is this. I'm not going to undermine it. If that's how you get down, whoever you are, get down like that. But I've never been in a meeting room and a coach said, hey, got to watch out for this quarterback today. His passer rating is 127.9. Nah, my coach turns on tape. So I, as one of 50, turn on tape. I'm not going to chastise the person who can't turn on tape. Like, as some voters who I know for certain they can't tell you the route tree. As some voters, I know for certain they could not drop a cover 4 defense out of a 3-4 or a 4-3. But they vote, and they vote based on stats. So sometimes stats lend you to an answer. Tape lent me to my answer. I will not degrade the person who can't break down tape. I won't, just because that doesn't serve me. Now, I do look kind of funny, like, dang, you voting on MVP, but you don't even know if Lamar made the right read on that play. It just worked out. You don't even know if Josh made the right read on them. You don't even know that this was an 80-yard touchdown because it was a busted coverage. You don't even know what coverage they were in to have busted the coverage. So I just know it's a wide variety of voters. I vote from my lens, not saying my lens is right, not saying their lens is wrong, but that's the beauty of having 50 different votes.
Yeah, no, I can appreciate that for sure. Like, you need to bring I'm sure they selected you and Mike Sando for 2 different reasons, so that they could have the diversity of the way of looking at the game. And so, but what I guess I was getting at with those stats, just because it becomes more punchy, and it becomes easier to articulate. But I would guess that when you watch that Eagles game, you see what we saw with the stats. You saw that Justin Tucker blew it. You saw when the Ravens played the Browns that the defense couldn't stop. Who was it during that game? Was it still Deshaun? No, it was Winston. Yeah. They made Winston look like an all-pro again, that he had just like resurrected his career. And then the Ravens all-pro Kyle Hamilton drops the game-winning pick. Mm-hmm. And you go back to the Raiders loss, which everybody was holding against Lamar and Lamar only. You saw what was happening with that offensive line, that they were rotating the rookie in at right tackle, and Daniel Fa'alele, a converted right tackle to right guard, was getting eaten alive by Max Crosby. Like, you saw those things. And so I say the stat because it's easier to communicate, but I know you saw that on film. I know you did.
1,000%. But I went back and I rewatched the Raiders game, and if I'm not mistaken, again, I got to cover 32 teams in several sports, so you probably know better than me. But if I'm not mistaken, there were 3 consecutive possessions where the Ravens, I don't think, not only did they not get points, they may have only gotten 1 first down. I think it was the last, like 3 of the last 4 possessions of the game. And that was the difference, because when you watch tape, unfortunately, you don't get to hear anything. You just see the score flash up, and then you see the score flash up again. And it was like 24 to like 14, then like 24 to 17, then like 24 to 24, then like, and it was like, yo, Ravens offense, you got to do something, because every time I'm hitting next, the score is changing. Mm-hmm. And so when I watched that game, that's when I was just like, dang, Lamar, your defense isn't helping you. But this is one of those positions where it's like, just go get a first down and like stop this nonsense. Like, just stop the BS, go get a first down and end it. I don't know. I mean, I think it was close. People who think Lamar was the MVP, that I'm not all up in arms, because I'm like, dude, you're not wrong. You know, like you're
no,
not.
and to be clear, I can obviously Josh had a sensational season. I just feel like Lamar did stuff that has never been done before, and I think he had a tougher. I think he did it against tougher competition.
This,
yeah,
and I got to go soon just because my voice hurts.
I know
and
you
I'm
do.
sure
I know
y'all
you
got to
do.
go too. But doing stuff that's never been done before. This isn't a Lamar thing in general. I don't think that makes you MVP. I think that makes it dope. That makes it super cool.
I think it makes you the best.
Impressive. But I don't think it makes it you the MVP. Like, I used to hate Russell Westbrook. I don't know if you're familiar with basketball at all, but like, first guy to average a triple-double in a season since Oscar Robinson. Okay. Then he did it again the next year. Okay. Then Sarah, he did it again 2 years later, 3 out of 4 years. Cool. Didn't make him. It made him the MVP once. But just because you did something that's never been done before, I'm like, yo, that's cool. That's incredibly impressive. But like, it doesn't make you the MVP. It makes you the most impressive. It makes you the coolest. It makes you the most unique.
Or the best this year. I mean, come on. When you have the 4th best ever passer rating and you're known to be a dual threat quarterback, when you have the best touchdown to interception ratio in NFL history, that makes you the best.
And that's why.
I just want to hear you say it. Who's the best quarterback?
It was Lamar.
Okay.
But that was obvious by my all-pro vote.
Well, you should have voted for MVP, in my opinion. You should have done it. You should have done it, Acho. I got love for you, but you should have done it. Just like Tom Brady and those other guys who are like, what are you talking about? MVP, best player.
Yeah, I got to run, but this has been good.
Hey, can I ask one before you jump?
Talk to me.
Sorry, Bobby.
Because we haven't talked. No, this was your debate. I just wanted to get your thought on. We haven't talked strength of schedule at all. And I think down the stretch, I want to know how that went into your consideration, if at all, because obviously the AFC East can't hold a candle in recent years, particularly this past season, to the AFC North. And being that Josh's final act was against, teams that didn't make the postseason, whereas, Lamar dismantled the Texans on Christmas Day. You beat Pittsburgh, you beat Cleveland to close out the year, and while Josh won 3 in a row as well. I'm sorry, they actually lost. Josh didn't play in the regular season finale, as you know, against New England. But prior, it was New England and New York. How much did that go into your consideration, if any at all?
It did, but here was the dilemma. I can't punish a guy who's already finished his work early. Like, I can't punish Josh for not playing in week 18. He took a snap and then he chilled. But I'm like, I can't deduct Josh. So Lamar, you're going to have to go retroactively jump what Josh did versus the Detroit Lions. You're going to have to retroactively go jump what Josh did versus the Kansas City Chiefs. You're going to because I'm not going to make Josh worse because he already won the AFC East. So of course it factored in, but the dilemma was that by the time Josh got to the last 3 games of the season, he had beaten the Lions and he had beaten the Chiefs. And so I wasn't going to retroactively deduct Josh for not playing in a Patriots game, because I'm sure he could have played in that last game. Well, let me not say I'm sure, but there's a high likelihood he could have played in the Patriots game and scored 4 touchdowns or 5 touchdowns, whatever the heck. But I wasn't going to punish him for having already finished his homework early. You know,
did he take a snap to extend his start streak that day?
Yeah.
Okay, so the start streak extended, but then they sat him.
Correct. So then he got a loss, I think, on his record because he started the game, but they didn't win the game. Something stupid. But that's what it was for me, Bobby. It definitely factored in, but it's kind of like I wasn't going to punish him for having already balled. That was just weird. That's weird to me to do that. To me, it's just weird. It's weird.
We appreciate your time, man.
Yeah, Acho, very much so. Again, you're one of those guys, and I say this to the audience all the time. You actually engage rather than give an opinion and run. So I got all the respect in the world for that. I really appreciate your time today. You didn't have to give us the time of day. You're the one with the MVP vote, not us. So I'm sure it's not fun for me to sit here and say, oh, you should have voted this way or that way. I know there's a million people doing that. So much respect. And thank you for letting me get this off my chest to an MVP voter.
For sure. All right, Sarah. All right, Bobby. Y'all be well.
Okay,
yeah, I saw you from afar too in New Orleans. What a city that was. That was awesome.
Epic. All right, people. I'm
gonna appreciate you, man.
Yeah.
Yep. See you around. Emmanuel Acho.
Listen,
great get, partner. Great get. Great conversation.
He said what I wanted him to say. Lamar Jackson was the best quarterback, and he should have voted for him. The definitions, the changing last second or whatever, some regime change or whatever, that's a bunch of BS. And otherwise, we need to change what we're looking at and what we're debating on shows, because people care about who's the best, not like who's the best on the worst team. You know what I mean? With the worst supporting cast. Like that can't be it. It can be, listen, I think that type of stuff can be a tiebreaker, maybe. But with Lamar dominating in almost every other category, you didn't need a tiebreaker. You didn't need one. You didn't need a tiebreaker. So anyway, much respect to him for sure.
That was a fun debate and great get by you and awesome stuff. And by the way, just to answer the chat, this was the plan all along for me to clear the way, like I said at the top. So
I did. When we got on, I said to Bobby, I said, how do you want to do this? How do you want to do this with Acho? Are we going to like rotate this and that? And he said, no, this is your debate. He said, I'm going to stand aside. So that wasn't me like elbowing Bobby out. Bobby wanted it to be this way. It didn't have to be that way, but he knew that I've been debating Acho online via Twitter. So the plan was for him to kind of like clear the stage. He was going to introduce him. He was going to get one question on his way out, and he was going to let me debate him. That was the plan the entire time.
Yeah. It's not my debate, and I'm not as passionate as you are, but I thought that was great. Really, really appreciate his time. And again, guys, it goes a long way, obviously, for us when we get guests like that. If you would tweet at him, if you would say thanks, if you would just show him some love in his mentions. Similarly to Mike Florio last week, maybe the takeaway is, oh man, not so bad, right? A good spirited conversation, a willing debate participant. So
yeah,
great stuff.
I hope that he walked away. I hope we both walk away feeling like we said what we wanted to say. You know how sometimes you walk away and you're like, I should have said this, should have said that. Like, I feel like I said what I wanted to say, and I'm sure he did too, because he's got practice at this. He's been defending himself online and on his show. So we both probably got our points across. Doesn't sound like either one of us changed the other's mind, but going forward, it's going to be crazy if this like definition isn't like settled for sure.